Online piracy's greatest comeback. It's almost like making games really hella expensive will make people pirate more. Pirate Bay!
The 2010s were the golden age of piracy. BitTorrent accounted for a third of all internet traffic. LimeWire had more monthly
Wait, a third? Wait, that's so much. What the
users than Facebook, and the Pirate Bay was the only video store in town where you were sure to find what you were looking for.
My brother taught me how to pirate when I was like, probably like 10, I want to say. And you want to know the best part about it? Is that he didn't teach me how to pirate games I wanted to pirate. He taught me how to pirate stuff while he was at work. He'd be like, okay, so Alana, can you check like that it's still torrenting, that is it leeching? And I'm like, yeah, it's leeching. He's like, okay, good, you gotta do that to be nice to other people. Yeah, he taught me that you gotta leech.
Hypothetically, of course.
Seed and
the
leech.
world was slowly switching from physical to digital media, and even people who weren't particularly tech-savvy realized that digital goods could be replaced endlessly with practically zero marginal cost. At its peak, 95% of all music downloads were pirated because it had become cheaper and, above all else, an easier way to fill up large digital libraries that were being made possible by cheap digital storage.
He taught me also how to burn discs as well for his car. Obviously, I can't drive, I'm a child, right? But he taught me how to burn discs because he wanted to go see chicks and he had to have a bunch of discs in his car. So, yeah, he taught me how to burn CDs because of that.
But then, it just stopped.
Nice music.
Since 2012, the internet has gotten faster, storage has gotten cheaper, and people have become more
I was a slave, man. Kinda low-key.
more comfortable with computers, which should have just accelerated a growth trend. But it didn't. Since 2015, peer-to-peer file sharing has collapsed in popularity. And you might think you
Unfortunate, man. I thought it would be alive and well.
already know why. Streaming services like Spotify and Netflix were just a better, easier, and safer way to access content. And now, as these services have become markedly worse and simultaneously more expensive, piracy is making a comeback. It seems pretty simple, right? The only problem is, that's not the whole story. Realistically, these companies knew this day would come. It was just really important that they could pretend it wouldn't.
For a lot of people, they've decided it's time to cut back.
But legitimately, it might be time to cancel some subscriptions, and I'm probably gonna have to cancel some. Some of them
You know what's really funny about this is that the equivalency of how difficult it is to get into pirating as a normal person. By the way, to preface this, I don't think piracy is difficult. I just think there's a barrier to entry of just knowing how to do it. Like, grandma's not gonna know how to put up an ad blocker, right? That's why she buys YouTube Premium. And I always have one person being like, no, Alana, it's actually really easy to teach your grandma to pirate. It's like, not really, no. For normal people, it's kind of hard.
I'm not using, and it's just wasting money.
There's so many of these, it's hard to keep track.
At that point, that's an adversarial relationship. I don't want to pay people to enter adversarial relationships.
We aim, as I said, for this business to be a growth business for the company with margins that our shareholders will feel good about.
So what really made piracy go away and what's really bringing it back might sound simple, but there's actually a bit more going on. First and foremost, the majority of people actually would like to acquire their media legally as long as it was easy and not ridiculously expensive.
But it's gotten so ridiculously expensive that they are going for other alternatives. Essentially, when you're broke, you don't have money to throw down for, multiple subscriptions. That's another thing. The amount of subscriptions is absolutely insane. Spotify, YouTube Premium, Twitch subscriptions if you want to support your favorite streamer, or you have Turbo. What else is there? I don't know. Yeah, Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, Crunchyroll, Discord. Yeah, Discord has a subscription now that you can pay for. Yeah, Amazon as well. Amazon Prime. Yeah, there's so much. Pornhub, if you pay for porn, you are cooked.
Most reasonable people understand that it costs time and money to produce a song, film a movie, or develop a video game. And the people involved in these projects do need to be compensated, or else they are just not going to make them. Even people who frequent the high seas, so to speak, know this better than anybody else. A survey coming out of Australia at the peak of online piracy found that people who pirated content were actually more likely to pay for it if it was available.
Yeah!
In a finding that really ages the study, online pirates were far more likely to pay for movies and music through iTunes or Quick Fix.
I'll tell you from personal experience, yeah, it was personal experience. There was a movie or a series I wanted to watch that was acquired by many different companies, and it was all split apart across several different platforms. So if you wanted to watch the season 1 of something, you had to buy it off of this platform for like $10.99, and then you're stuck with them for like a month, right? And then if you wanted to go to another season, like season 6 or something, you had to go pay another website, and you're just sitting here like, I could just pirate it. Why the fuck would I bother? This is such a pain, and plus I'm paying for like a service that I'm not gonna use for the whole time.
This was because people who pirated content were just more likely to consume content overall, and most of them would only make the trip to the Bay if they couldn't find what they were looking for more legitimately. So there were 2 things that changed after 2013.
Oh my god, is this Riot in 2013 or something? This is the Harlem Shake, dude. Oh, this is so cringe.
Sure, there were a few high-profile
my heart, it's so old.
Crackdowns on some of these sites,
Like
but even the
10
regulators
years old,
themselves
man.
knew they were just playing a game of whack-a-mole. One of the most downloaded files on the Pirate Bay was the Pirate Bay, a complete copy of the site with all of the addresses that could be set up by basically anybody with some basic server hardware in the event that the authorities took down the original site.
Yeah, that's what they could never really kill it, yeah.
But then came along
It's
the streaming
funny.
sites that, thanks to faster internet speeds, could let users watch content on demand without granting them direct access to digital files which could then be copied and shared illegally. The big thing was that these options were just so easy compared to piracy, and so cheap compared to buying songs or movies one by one that it just didn't really make sense to bother with anything else. Nowadays, that's clearly changed. There are dozens of streaming services that are each getting more and more expensive every year. The movies and shows that you watch are being split up over different providers.
This is what I was talking about, but this is even worse, split in between seasons sometimes depending on the show.
The services themselves are getting worse by introducing ads and pushing less relevant content, and on top of all of that,
What was that Netflix premium bullshit as well? Where if you like pay extra for ads, you don't get 3 minutes of ads, you get no ads, period. So like you actually get fucked as a consumer.
it's just not that easy anymore. Even individual TV shows
it's
have
like
certain
ad
seasons
tiers.
split up over different streaming services, and the first step
there
in
we go.
sitting down to watch a movie these days is to Google what streaming service has the 1984 release of Gremlins, and if you're unlucky, what streaming service plus what VPN combo will get you the movie you want to watch.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh my god, regionally locked movies. I pirate. I totally don't pirate so much, but you know, a friend of a friend told me that it's really annoying. Yeah, yeah, it's really annoying, the regional locks.
If you're already going through all that effort, it gets really tempting to just replace streaming services with your port of choice, because in most cases, it will just be easier. So yeah, streaming services were cheap and easy, which killed the need for piracy. But then they slowly became expensive and terrible, which brought it back. Pretty straightforward, right? Wrong. It's easy to write this whole thing off as just dumb companies being needlessly greedy to their own peril. And while that's definitely part of the problem, there is a lot more to it than that. Music streaming by comparison is decent. There are multiple services, but almost all of them have almost all of the music that you would possibly be looking for.
Yeah, you can pretty much get anything. I don't know about Amazon Music or Apple Music, but I'd say YouTube and Spotify are pretty unanimously like kind of the kings of the market right now. Amazon Music is kind of cringe. You can't find a lot of stuff.
As a result, nobody really bothers to pirate songs anymore, which is
Yeah.
particularly impressive when you remember that just 15 years ago, 95% of music was being downloaded illegally.
Oh, absolutely. Do you want to know what I did when I was a kid? I got my first iPod Shuffle and I gave it to a friend that had better internet than I did, and I asked them to give me their entire like stock of bullshit, and also their parents were rich. and they had all of the Apple Music as well. So they had Apple Music, like they had some sort of like, they had like an entire library. They bought everything, so they just had everything, and they would just bring like little, you know, samples, and you'd pay them like $5 or $10, slip it under the table, and then they would just copy an entire library over.
Artists have not been
sick.
thrilled about the lower revenue they have got from streaming versus physical album sales, but most of them still go along with it because even a small share of something is better than most of their music being accessed for free. This raises a potentially unpopular idea, that it might not be streaming that's broken. It might be the movie industry that's broken.
Yes!
The golden age of streaming was never going to last because it was never meant to last. So it's time to learn how money works to find out why piracy is really making a comeback. This video was made possible by iScanner. I was sorting through some old receipts for tax season, trying to remember which ones I still needed to file. And of course, one of the important ones had coffee stains all over it. The text was barely readable. Classic me. That's why I started using iScanner. I just scanned the receipt and it used AI to clean everything up. It straightened the page, fixed the lighting, and even removed the worst of the stains.
Low key, why do you need this? Like, how fricked up are your receipts?
I could finally read the numbers again, and drop the PDF straight into my records. Since then, it's kind of become my go-to. Whenever I'm scanning documents, notes, receipts, or even something my dog got his teeth on, iScanner makes it super easy to salvage whatever's left and turn it into something useful. It's fast, it works across all my devices.
That's probably really useful for people that do this shit. Yeah. I'm not gonna rag on this. It's probably pretty useful.
And the free version actually does what I need, including editing, signatures, and storing everything in one place. Check it out with the link below, and make your paperwork just a little less painful. Netflix is the most dominant movie and TV streaming service in the world. It has over 300 million paying subscribers, and unlike a lot of its competitors, it's actually profitable. But from its very first days of online streaming, they knew they would eventually lose people back to piracy. They just really didn't care. And to see why, I'm sorry, but you are going to have to look at some financials. Last year, it made $8.7 billion in net income after taxes, which is extremely impressive, but it still makes it hard to justify the valuation of more than $500 billion. At that rate, shareholders would need 57 years for their investment to pay off, which is not a reasonable bet for a company in an industry that has only been dominant for a decade. 57 years ago, watching a movie looked like this. And in another 57 years from now, it's highly unlikely that we will still be watching movies through the current selection of streaming services. Now, most investors in this company aren't dumb. They know that Netflix can't make their money back with its current structure. What they are banking on is being able to offer a cheaper service that they can charge more for in order to fatten up those
shitification. Let's fucking go.
Margins.
Let's not talk about my margins, by the way. Being nice and fat. That's a nice shirt. Do they make it for men?
Anyway, cutting content, raising prices, and pushing strange features like mobile games within the app are not some surprise new rollout. They are part of a development plan that the company knew it would have to implement since it started offering online streaming. It would just be a lot better if they could do it without competition. Now, on the expenses side, there is some good news. As technology improves, network infrastructure has become cheaper for the same capacity, which means the actual cost to stream videos to users is getting better every year. Netflix's cost of revenue adjusted for inflation has actually been stable since 2022.
Yeah, but Netflix streaming sucks. Shit still buffers, though. That's my biggest gripe, is that they're increasing the price, but it's not actually, like, helping as well. Like, it's not really doing anything. Oh, we're gonna make you charge... We're gonna charge you more for a shittier service. Yeah, it's actually not changed at all.
Despite adding almost 100 million new users in that time. Included in those costs are the aforementioned servers and network infrastructure, but it also includes the cost to license and produce their own movies, TV shows, and games. Another big reason
Netflix doesn't even make that many good shows to begin with. It's like once in a while they will. Yeah, Squid Games was pretty good, but isn't season 3 Squid Games complete dog ass?
And their costs have been improving is because they just aren't licensing as much content as they used to, and that's for two reasons. The first was a business decision to cut down on a cost, especially for content that wasn't drawing in new users. The second reason is simply because they can't get their hands on as many titles anymore, because independent studios have made their own streaming services and want to keep their biggest IPs exclusive, so they can force users to either switch to their platform or shell out for 2 or more streaming services. Netflix is slowly producing its own titles, But that hasn't caught up to the content they are losing from licensing. So then why does this mean that Netflix doesn't care about piracy? Well, publicly they say they do, of course, but piracy is going to hurt their competition a lot more than it's going to hurt them. If people can't find a movie or show on Netflix and then give up and pirate it, that didn't really cost Netflix any money, because the vast majority of content out there wasn't theirs to lose, and they most likely didn't spend the money producing it. A 2023 paper in the Journal of Economic Behavior and Organization titled Pirate and Chill found that when movies moved off Netflix to another platform, piracy of that content increased by more than 20%.
That's
now,
a lot.
First and foremost, that's an
1 in 5.
amazing name for a professional journal article. But apart from that, it showed why Netflix had—
Pirate and Chill? Pirate and Chill, the effect of Netflix on illegal streaming? This is an actual this is actual research? That's a good title. Yeah, that's a good one. Sarah... No way! Their last name is Frick? Are you pulling my leg right now? Their name is Frick.
an amazing name for a professional journal article. But apart from that, it showed why Netflix hasn't been too concerned with online piracy. In a now infamous quote from the company's chief content officer, they said that in order for Netflix to be successful, we need to become movie studios faster than movie studios can become us. Piracy that disproportionately hurt legacy movie studios and their libraries of content was not something that Netflix would encourage. But behind closed doors, they certainly weren't too sad it was happening. Another way to think about this is that obviously Amazon isn't encouraging shoplifting, but it's a problem that hurts their competition far more than it hurts them. Piracy has also been a handy little tool throughout the company's history. Back in 2013, it admitted to using data from online—
But again, Amazon also went through enshittification. People don't really have an option. Like, what are you gonna do? Go to another Amazon? Oh, you're gonna go buy something that you can't buy in your hometown because they bullied out all the other competition? Yeah, that's pretty much what happens. It kind of sucks.
Piracy sites to find out what was popular and therefore what was worth licensing.
I love
Okay, so
Monopoly.
Netflix doesn't care about the rise of piracy. But what about the actual Hollywood studios? Well, they obviously do, and they crack down on IP theft with furious anger. But they are in a difficult situation. They could send piracy back to the Dark Ages by reconcentrating their content onto a single easy platform. But at the moment, that would probably be Netflix, which a company like Disney would obviously not be willing to go along with after investing so much in their own service. If they keep competing, though, they are just going to make the experience worse for everybody and
What is the stock footage, dude?
they are just going to make
Sorry, it's just
the
funny.
experience worse for everybody and probably lose more ground to the high seas. Now, for these companies, this whole fight could not be happening at a worse time. There is a reason why music studios were able to play nice and make their content available just about anywhere while movie studios were fighting to the death. Music is simply much cheaper to produce, and there are far more sources of alternative revenue beyond just directly selling a song or an album. Artists don't make as much from streaming as they would from a physical album sale, but they can make it up in tours, merchandising, and other licensing deals. On the flip side, movies have largely been getting more expensive to produce.
Yeah, and they still suck, even though there were movies from the 1980s that still look better than most of the crap produced today. That sounds like a skill issue, I'm not gonna lie. CGI overload, I'm not even talking about that. It's like practical effects are dead, the script writing's ass, there's too many people working on a singular movie that aren't really doing anything, they all need salaries. Yeah, it's just like video games, exactly.
While cinema attendance has never fully recovered from its dip during COVID. Ironically, one of the biggest theater releases of the past 5 years from its dip during—
Wow, that 2 billion down to barely... So what, almost 2 billion tickets sold down to barely 500? Holy shit, that's really bad. That's not good at all.
COVID.
Yeah, it's just
ironically, one of the biggest theater releases of the past 5 years was actually for a music studio with the cinema release of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. In the past, poor box offices wouldn't matter as much, because mid-budget movies could make a lot of their money back through DVD sales. But obviously, that's not really a thing anymore. So studios have put even more effort into pushing their streaming services to eventually make back the difference. It's a bold strategy, and there are hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap at stake. So executives really want to pretend that eventually it'll work out. But if it doesn't, there are some lessons to be learned from the music industry which didn't beat piracy. it just made it unnecessary. The first is that movies have simply become too expensive for the current market. Studios have recognized that people are only going to the movies for special occasion releases these days because it's expensive, the theater experience isn't that good anymore, and people can just wait a month and watch it for free on one of the streaming services that they were already paying for. Instead of making the whole thing cheaper and putting
and also you don't have to be around other people. Good lord, that's a big factor.
less of their eggs in a single
I think people during COVID realized that it's really not that great going to the movies, to be completely honest. At least back in the day, when a movie ticket costed like $10 and a bucket of popcorn was like affordable, or at least not as expensive, I feel like it was kind of worth it.
basket, they have doubled down on
Now
producing
people are like,
mega
"Yeah, fuck
blockbusters.
that."
Of the 20 most expensive movies ever made, 19 of them came out in the last 10 years after streaming was already mainstream. These figures also only count the production budget, not the marketing budget. And on the revenue side, the box office doesn't include the share paid out to movie theaters. With even extremely generous estimates of those arrangements, only about half of these releases made their money back. And some in particular, like the Marvel's Snow White, Dial of Destiny, and the
Snow White
latest Mission Impossible movie are shaping up to be catastrophic losses. So far, studios have been able to justify these flagship productions to their investors by talking about their IP value, which can later be extracted by bringing in customers to their streaming
Oh, here we go, Ironheart, there it is.
platforms. But that isn't really happening. Customers who join because they want to watch a single movie didn't tend to stay subscribed for very long compared to those who enjoy a deeper library of mid-budget movies or TV shows. I don't know about you, but I tend to take my subscription to whatever streaming service is hosting The Office this month.
Yes!
These huge productions also put more strain on the business as these losses have to be made up somewhere, and that is more often—
It's the same with anime as well. Anime has a huge problem like this too. There's like 3 or 4 different services, the biggest one obviously being Crunchyroll, but there's just certain things you can't watch legally unless you go and buy or, you know, get a subscription.
than not increased prices, more ads, and worse overall service. Now, I would forgive you for not feeling too sorry for Hollywood studio executives, but they are really in a no-win situation here. The harder they push back against the changing media landscape, the harder they push people towards the high seas. So anyway, now might be a good time to shamelessly plug that these videos are being made available ad-free on Spotify. So if you would prefer to listen in or watch it over there, I have left a link in the description.
Wow.
And if you think it's just streaming services that have been getting so bad, go and watch this video next to find out why making junk makes so much money. And don't forget to like and subscribe to keep on learning how money works.
That was a good one. Anyway, start pirating, chat. Or keep pirating. Smile. That was a good video. I get nostalgic thinking about like how I used to pirate a pretty decent amount. Fun fact, I pirated Sims 3 and I bricked the family computer with a Trojan. Yep.
Yeah.